Take this opportunity to center ourselves. This space that's comfortable for you. Nice deep breath in. Let us release and let go. As we come into this space together as one, we recognize our Christ spirit, our Christness. As we inhale, and release. We allow ourselves to center in our Christ spirit. Gracious Divine, our hearts and our minds are open for true guidance, true understanding, true wisdom. As we turn to our Christ, we receive a new understanding. We breathe. Continue to focus on our Christ, our witness, God. In our consciousness, we are aware that God is our divine source. We must, God, express love and grace. We are love. We are grace. As we breathe in, we release all anxieties, all concerns, and put ourselves in this present moment, this present time and space. With our faith, we realize that everything works in God's divine order. And we are part of that divinity. As we inhale, release, we come back to this space. Thankful hearts, open minds. Come back to this space. Inhale. Release. Thank you, God. So how's everybody doing? Good.
All right. Good.
My name is Tony Steward. Reverend Brian and I have been good friends for a good while, and he asked me if I would come up here before Huron. I said I'd love to. We got nice sunny weather up here. Today's a beautiful day. And so we've been on the 12 Powers of Man, and we want to take some time with each other and share out our understanding on the power of wisdom. Power of wisdom. As we go through this discussion, objective is to be able to connect with these different faculties of spirit and see how they apply in our lives, and know that how are we expressing them out in our lives as we go forward. So today it might be a little bit different. I might ask you to kind of share out some things. So sometimes through sharing, people start to come to a different understanding of things when they hear somebody else kind of share out. The more information on the table, or more stew in the more mixture in the pot, the better the gumbo tastes. So the idea is we're going to make ourselves a nice little groove with this discussion and we'll see what we come out with. For me, I want to start with this quote right here. And we'll just kind of move on here. So take a look at this quote up here. It says, if it were possible for man to know all the wisdom and joy of the infinite, he would not have the necessity for experience with the opposite. If we were to know all the joy and all the wisdom of the infinite, all the divine, it would not be necessary for us to experience the opposite. Let's just sit with that for just a minute. When I first read this, I thought about this idea of not having to experience the opposite. So I guess the opposite of joy is sadness. Right? That would be great, to be able to not have to experience these things. But according to the scripture, in order to be able to do that, I have to know all the wisdom. Right? I have to know all of the infinite. And I don't think I'm quite there yet. Which would suggest to me that once I get there, then I don't have to experience the opposite. So until I get there, I will have to experience the opposite. It made me think of, there's a book by No Mud, No Lotus. And he talks about this idea of, in order to have this flower, you have to have it. They come together. So I'd like to take a few minutes to think about this idea of wisdom, which is what we're going to be diving into. How would you describe it based off of your understanding where you are? Everybody's in different spaces, come from different places. How would you describe wisdom? Take a minute just to kind of think about that, and then I'd like to hear some different ideas. How would you describe wisdom? What is it? How would you define it or describe it? If you saw it, what would it look like?
Well, we all learn things as we get older. We pick up different spiritual gifts, and that's usually the direction I'm going. Spiritual, metaphysical. And as we learn all these things, we get wiser as we age, and from experiences too.
Okay. So, spiritual gifts and our experiences, and as we learn from these experiences, we gain wisdom.
Yeah, you grow from.
Grow from spiritual growth. Yes, ma'am.
And understanding
Understand
in real life.
and realize. What do you talk about that a little bit? Understanding.
Understanding that it ain't you.
Right.
You realize where your strengths come from.
Right. That idea, it ain't me. Right. There's a divine source there. Right. That's where it all comes from. Right. And I think that's the spiritual growth that you're referring to. Right. That you get this new understanding. As you move through this space, you get a new understanding. And I think we start to realize a few things. One is this idea of control. We have control of what we don't have control of. Right? There's certain things we have no control over. That's when you really start to realize it's not you. How do we understand wisdom? I'm going to give you a few definitions here and kind of see how do they correlate with what you just described, with what you just described to me. One is the ability to use your good knowledge and decisions. This from Joe. The ability to use your make good knowledge and decisions. With Job. This is from psychology. Psychologists tend to agree that wisdom involves the integration of knowledge and experience, and deep understanding as well as a tolerance for the uncertainties of life. There's an awareness of how things play out over time, and it confers a sense of balance. So it's this integrating of things. Psychology would refer to it as an integration of various things. Your knowledge and your experience. And those things give you that understanding. And that awareness, their awareness of how things play out, that understanding of how things play out over time. And this is from Job. It says, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from it is evil, is understanding. The wisdom of the Lord, and to depart from evil is understanding. So, this idea of fear, it caught me when I read this because I grew up in a Baptist church.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that was one of the things I had to understand was fear of the Lord is not necessarily being afraid of God as much as it is reverencing God. So to fear God is to reverence God, not to be afraid. All right, so as we move through, here's some areas that we want to try to understand. We want to be able to understand what are the components of wisdom. How is wisdom acquired? And then also, how do we need wisdom? Or excuse me, do we need to have bad experiences to receive wisdom? We sort of looked at that question earlier. So let's hit this first question. These are our components of wisdom: divine judgment, intuition, justice and righteousness and discretion. So divine judgment, the ability to make decisions based on our divine understanding and not the appearance of it. Being able to see things not as they appear, but as they are. Right? There's two different ways of looking at things, or a different way of looking at things. We talk about sometimes when we see a situation that is occurring, and it might give us a sense of uncomfortableness or uncertainty, we can think of it as something that is bad. But at the same time, if you look at it from a spiritual understanding or a Christ understanding, you can find the good. Right? So divine judgment, using our divine judgment. Intuition. This is the pure knowing that things come from within, that divine source that someone mentioned earlier, right? That there's something out there greater than ourselves. And when we continue to tap into that, we have a different experience, a different understanding. Another component is justice and righteousness. And this is us weighing our experiences, weighing our understanding, weighing what we see in front of us. It's the idea of using love, harmony, and understanding in your judgments. Right? I work with children. I teach them. And it took me, when I first started teaching, I would come home and I would just complain. Oh man, these kids, there's something else. Oh my gosh. And my aunt, who was also a teacher, she told me, she said, you need to find the beauty in your children. I was like, beauty? I'm going to tell you what I find right now. Your headache, that's what I find. But, I had to sit with that for a while. And when I started to do that, when I started to look at them from a different space, and I started to look at each individual child, not all these kids in this room, and try to see what was in this child, I hope my experience changed. Kid didn't change. That was the same yakety yak kid that was coming in the room late and playing games with him. But I changed. Right? I saw this child different. And I reacted to it different. And I came home with a different experience. Right? So this idea of righteousness, justice and righteousness, and weighing things differently. And then discretion, right? The capability to discern, right? To see things as they are. This is very important to me because when I learned this word, I was pretty young when I heard it. And I just realized this is an important thing to be able to do. Is to be able to see things as they are, see the truth behind a thing. Mm-hmm. Right? Because that's where your clarity is. Mm-hmm. And if you take these four things and we start to use them as a tool, right, to practice with them, right, then we start to gain our wisdom. And see, that's the thing about the principles. The principles tell us that, look, God is good. We are divine in God, right? And that we can connect to God. This is where we do it. This is where we make our connection. Now, it sounds simple. Oh, yeah, okay. But it takes a little bit of effort. Right? It's not just add water. You don't get an easy button, nothing like that, right? Right? These things take time. And I think that's the other piece, is that we're always looking for, instead of allowing When's it gonna get here? I want it now.
Yeah.
Well, like they used to tell our kids, you get what you get. You don't have a fit, right? You're gonna get something, but you have to allow it to come. You can't make it. Divinity unfolds, right? It doesn't. Don't pack it. It unfolds. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, so how do we acquire wisdom? If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given unto you. This was another quote that I heard when I was young. And I realized that this was actually the talk on Solomon. And I remember our minister was telling the story of Solomon, how wise Solomon was. Man, I want to be like this guy. I want to be smart like him, wise like, because he seemed to just make every decision that he made worked out. You know, so I was like, well, how do you, and he asked. Well, how do you ask? How do you ask? That's not rhetorical, I'm actually going there. How do you ask? How do you ask for wisdom?
Prayer. Yeah.
Prayer.
I sometimes just take a couple of deep breaths and hopefully something comes to you.
Take a deep breath, that's meditation. Right?
Just allow yourself to be open to it.
Allow yourself to be open.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
Sometimes just ask.
Just ask.
He is your friend. He's our confidant. And if we want to know, like he said, seek and you shall find. If you keep asking and you're willing to hear him and not accept anything that comes along, because you'll feel that emptiness inside you that makes you want to keep asking.
There's something
And
there.
when he answers, you will know it's him.
There's something there when that hunger that we have to get closer to God. Is that God's hunger to get closer to us? Right? And so when we're taking that deep breath, it's sort of, okay, let me just get myself together. Right? Taking that moment to breathe. That's asking. Right? That's you being you're consciously using the tools, for lack of a better word, tools, right? That will help you to gain wisdom, to see, go back and look at these, when you have to make a decision on something. And generally, that's when we're trying to breathe, is like, oh man, I need to figure this out. And so we take that minute, put ourselves together. Right? That's divine. Yes, ma'am.
I find that when I ask God to remove my ego out of the picture so that I can more clearly understand God, it has helped me tremendously because I have a strong ego and it wants to handle everything. And I've had to realize through life experiences that it's not up to me. You know, it's up to God. So you get the ego out of the way and then you're more receptive to what God's saying.
Yep. Recognize that my Christ identity is unified with the mind of God and the spiritual consciousness. You take your ego out, what are you doing? You're unifying yourself with spiritual consciousness. But the good thing is to recognize that I didn't know myself. To recognize, you know what? I need to step back because I can see where I'm trying to drive, and I'm not the person that needs to be driving. And so that recognition, you know, I used to do conflict mediation. And we talked about conflict management with children and young adults and adults for that matter. And one of the things we started to understand was you do not calm down from being upset until you recognize that you are angry. The minute you recognize that you are angry, now you can say, oh, wait a minute, let me just veer off of here. Let me step back. Let me breathe. But while you're in the moment, in that time, in that space, you don't recognize that anger. Recognize that divine judgment is working and ask yourself, how do I understand this because what appears in front of me? That's this idea. You go back. We go back to our slides again. Right? That idea of intuition, knowing that the divine is there working, and then step back and, okay, so how is this working in my space? There's two sources of understanding. There's our human understanding, right? And then there's our spiritual understanding. Our human understanding is based off of the appearance of things, what we see in front of us, what is playing out, unfolding in front of us at that moment. How are we responding or reacting to that situation? Road rage, somebody tell you something that's off the cuff, you just got a bill in the mail, you saw something on the news, somebody says something, you're in the grocery store, and the last box of Captain Crunch cereal was gone, that was the one that you wanted to take home. I mean, something that you are experiencing, how you see it up front. Yeah, I think I need to just put it here. I need to keep my hands still. Right? And so the spiritual understanding, right? This is the understanding through the process of leading to a new awareness of self. This is me saying, hey, you know what, I got a big old ego and I need to step back and let this ego go and let Christ deal with this. That's spiritual understanding. It's a process. It's not a situation. It's a process. It unfolds. Certain things happen and the process takes place. Right? It's a universal and timeless yet an eternally reverent. In other words, it's always the same. It's always there. We take time to tap into it. And then always big picture and unlimited scope. If you look at your human side, it's limiting. It might be the Band-Aid that worked for a moment. Right? But when we talk about a spiritual, it's timeless, it's unlimited. And so how do we transition between these two? Because I'm sure there are times where you're experiencing things from your human side. And you have to, because you're human. But let's take it a step further. What's the other side of it? Our spiritual. Let's try and experience it from our spiritual side. Now, we've experienced so much from our human side. All the time, constantly. But when do we step back and try to understand it from our spiritual side, that experience? When do we try to understand it from our spiritual side? And understanding those components help us do that. Constructive patience. What does it look like? Learning, the act of learning how to wait is a key ingredient to spiritual unfolding. We talked about this idea of us trying to do something to make it happen. We have to allow it to happen, allow it to unfold. And there's things we can do to shift us into a space so we can recognize the unfolding. Right? And then also knowing when to wait is important in the process, as well as the life of the individual. This is an example of a disciplined spirit. There are certain situations that might come up and we might have a knee-jerk reaction to. But if we waited, if we just stepped back for a moment and thought about our response, thought about what just happened from our spiritual space. Because we got time, folks. We just choose not to take it. We just choose to respond. But we have time. Especially in a world where it feels like we don't have time, like we need it. Everything is respond now, do it now, check this box now. Click here. We have time. And if we take our time, we can allow it to unfold. We were listening to a podcast. It was pretty interesting. And in the podcast, they were talking about cell phones. So we're pretty much in the generation before the cell phone, right? And if you look at how much time you had to yourself prior to a cell phone, and you look at yourself now with a cell phone, strolling, just, what do they call it, doom strolling? Yeah, well, you just flip it through. 20 minutes gone by. Right? Instead of waiting, we need to fill our time. Right? Instead of sitting and listening, we want to fill our time. I want to put this question back to you. Do we need experiences to receive wisdom?
That's how we grow.
That's how we grow. What do you mean by that? Talk a little bit. What do you say, how we grow?
Well, I don't look at experiences as good or bad, like I used to a long time ago. When an experience I go through, like cancer, for example, I say to God, what am I supposed to learn from this? What are my lessons? And how do I use this to help others? Which has caused me now to go out into the public and talk about my experience through cancer and what I could have, should have done differently for my own health and hopefully helping other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And not only does that unfoldment give you new understanding, but it also gives you new direction. Right? And if that's not expressing God's divinity, I don't know what it is.
I read something, this one, but it says, and oh, it was in the one where God's speaking. Well, I didn't watch it, but anyways, he did a book on conversations with God. That was God. And in it, he says we can't experience the good unless we know what the bad is. So it's like a balance, and that's how we learn and grow from those negative experiences.
I think your mind says we have to experience that in order to do that, but I don't know whether you really absolutely have to, if you're wise enough, I'm not wise.
Well, yes,
enough,
you go.
okay, but, some people may not have to. I have to experience that, but I don't think that's necessarily a law.
Okay.
I think it's part of humanness. That's why we're here.
I also believe, well, you can say Adam and Eve and ate the forbidden fruit, the know right from wrong. But since the time we was born, we was taught as children to believe and trust in our parents. But as we grew into our own lives and looked at the world in our own eyes and experienced what we have experienced, that's where our wisdom came in. We know the difference between right and wrong, because sometimes right wasn't right. when we was a kid. And what we thought was good ain't good. But we had to go through it. We had to experience it. That's where our growth and our belief for God comes in. And that's why we still asking. And we ain't satisfied for a yes or a no. We want to go deeper because we live with ourselves now. And our goal is we are responsible for our salvation. And if you want to get there, it's going to be a rough. But if you want it bad enough, you're going to keep asking because you don't want to mess up.
So there's these experiences that we have as young people, we understand things. As you get older, we understand things as adults. And some of those things we understood, we have to go to the wayside. I call this a checkup from the neck up. What am I expressing in my thoughts? What am I expressing in my actions? From time to time, I like to ask myself this question because it allows me to see where, if I'm coming from my spiritual self, if I'm coming from my humans. Now, I don't think we walk constantly in our spiritual self. I think we float between these two, right? I think by understanding how to be, how to function in our spiritual self, it helps us maneuver in our human self, right? But from time to time, I just like to ask myself that question. What are my thoughts? What am I expressing out, right? Just like when I became a corporate teacher for the first time. What was I expressing out? What I express out is telling me exactly what my thoughts are. It tells me exactly where I am in my crisis or my consciousness, period. So to step back and to ask yourself that question gives you an opportunity for growth. I'm going to read just a couple quotes here. This is from Howard Thurman. Growth means the experience of becoming aware of self as that. The purpose of a person's heart is like deep water, but a person's understanding will draw it out. That's the end of that.